Ah, gee, what a surprise. Protests in Melbourne, led by leftist thugs, got violent this week. Peace protests getting violent in a flash. Funny that. Channel 7 Melbourne reporter Paul Dowsley was in the thick of it on 7's morning show on Wednesday.
Oh, just behind us here. And this is what I mean. Out of nowhere, there will be a sudden rush. More capsicum spray. More, to let this man through here, presumably. This man, who's covered as a police officer down there, has fallen down. But this man, there's a police officer who's fallen down, but he's back up again. But this attendee has been let through.
Lord, please.
The protesters were from the radical far-left communist group Socialist Alliance and pro-Palestinian activists, all fully supported by the Greens, the political party that astoundingly now claims 13% of the primary vote in this country, according to the latest polls. 13% and rising. That's how stupid and politically ignorant our fellow citizens on the other side of politics have actually become.
42 protesters were arrested during the clashes, which saw police use pepper spray and rubber bullets, and parts of the Melbourne CBD were brought to a standstill.
Greens leader Adam Bandt is yet to join everyone else in condemning the violence. That's because the Greens aren't Greenpeace. The Greens are the Soviet Socialist Alliance of Australia, and most of them would probably be quite happy if every right-wing Aussie just dropped dead tomorrow. The protest happened at the Melbourne Convention Centre outside the Land Forces International Land Defence Expo. They're basically protesting against Australia and other Western countries' right to defend ourselves. So that's good. Channel 9 News reporter Reid Butler saw it this way.
They're anti-war, but today they waged one against Victoria Police and their horses. Officers fighting back.
They come here to protest against anti-war, so presumably anti-violence. The only way I can describe them is a bunch of hypocrites.
24 police officers were hurt, both from Victoria and interstate. They were pelted with missiles like bottles and rocks, even horse manure.
These geniuses think they're so clever that they see behind the Western world's lies. That because the CIA is a meddling train wreck of an organisation that's been out of control for 60 years, which may be true, that means America is by its very nature evil, and anyone who seeks to bring down the Western world order is a good guy with wholesome motives. The American experiment of a liberal representative democratic republic built upon Christian values, that is a rare and precious thing. Of course, there will be bad actors within that system and bad things done throughout history, but that doesn't mean that the whole thing is rotten. If you want to fix America, you maybe need to break up the big bloated national bureaucracies like the CIA and FBI and reform them to be more accountable. And the last time I checked, there was only one presidential candidate who's anti-establishment enough to actually make that happen. And it sure isn't the left-wing side of politics. 2,000 Victoria police officers, some on horseback, had to use rubber bullets, pepper spray and batons, and they really struggled to keep the crowd under control. Protesters were setting wheelie bins on fire, blocking the roads and vandalising nearby hotels, and grabbing police horses' reins, throwing manure at the cops and generally assaulting all the police. The Victorian Police Commissioner Shane Patton told ABC News.
They were shoved, they had bottles thrown at them, they had balloons thrown at them that had different liquids in them. We've had analysis that shows some type of low-level acid that caused irritants to the police was used. A whole range of different attacks on my police officers.
The US and Western European world order has been the most successful in the entire history of mankind in creating wealth, freedom and peace for the maximum number of people. And it's far from perfect. You're not Einstein for noticing that it's far from perfect, kiddies. Global trade and capitalism, though, has lifted billions of people out of poverty and misery and enslavement caused by authoritarian government centralised systems. But these protesting geniuses still think that supporting big government socialist models will create wealth and happiness and freedom. No, it won't. It can't by definition. It never has in practice ever. So if you really want to stop wars and you're a bit concerned about the commercialisation of weapons technology and the military-industrial complex, join the club. But it was ever thus, all through human history. So the radical left have to stop being so naive and dumb and childish and look at where we are in the full context of, as Kamala Harris likes to say, where we have been. 9 News' Reid Butler was one of the very few reporters to actually notice that the protesters weren't looking for peace in Melbourne. They want confrontation, violence, and maximum disruption. They're deluded souls who believe that the best thing is to just tear it all down like a pack of little spoiled children with no plan of what they're going to put in its place. How Bolshevik of them.
It may sound odd, but this is actually what protesters have been wanting. They want the confrontation. They've been goading the officers to charge them for the best part of an hour now, and it looks like it is finally happening. This was midday in Melbourne, the protest capital.
To behave in such a disgraceful way towards members of Victoria Police, they deserve to be treated absolutely with respect.
Dealing with a group of dirty, filthy, disgusting animals who have simply come to Melbourne today to cause havoc, anarchy.
Well done, Reid Butler and Channel 9. And it doesn't sound odd, mate. It's in the history books. It's all been done before. It's never worked, yet they keep on trying. The world is not a nice place. Evil exists. We unfortunately need defence technology to keep us ahead of our enemies. And our enemies are people like Hamas, who think it's a great idea to take billions of dollars of other countries' money, given to it in the spirit of goodwill by the people of America, Europe, Australia and others, to build their new state, and spend 18 years wasting that money and opportunity building tunnels and arming up to destroy their neighbour instead of building a thriving city to enrich and prosper their people. Our enemies sit in Tehran and Moscow and Beijing, seeking to take away the rights of their own people and eventually all of us by shoving their ideology of authoritarian control, Islamism or communism, down our necks. So if you don't believe in the West and you don't want to defend the West and the liberal democratic order from these threats, you simply shouldn't be in the West. Folks, something else happened this week, something that, as usual, got overlooked pretty much by the mainstream news here in Australia because it's all too hard to explain. But the US Secretary of State, their equivalent of our Foreign Affairs Minister, Antony Blinken, has met with his new UK Labor Party government counterpart, the British Foreign Secretary, David Lammy. In a news conference during the visit late this week, Secretary Blinken revealed that in a move that kind of brings the two big global hotspots of Ukraine and the Middle East closer together, a little bit strategically, Iran has been selling ballistic missiles to Russia. That is a violation of multiple UN security resolutions.
We've warned Tehran publicly, we've warned Tehran privately, that taking this step would constitute a dramatic escalation. Dozens of Russian military personnel have been trained in Iran to use the Fata 360 close-range ballistic missile system, which has a maximum range of 75 miles. Russia has now received shipments of these ballistic missiles and will likely use them within weeks in Ukraine against Ukrainians.
US Secretary of State Antony Blinken. He says this development threatens European security more broadly, and it shows how Iran's destabilizing influence extends beyond the Middle East. But there's another serious implication too.
For its part, Russia is sharing technology that Iran seeks. This is a two-way street, including on nuclear issues, as well as some space information. In recent days, we've been sharing intelligence behind these findings with our allies and partners, and working together to ensure that there will be significant economic consequences for Tehran's actions.
This news comes 2 months after Blinken indicated that Iran was only weeks away from having the material they needed to build a nuclear weapon. Thank you, Joe and Kamala. Well done. Your Iran strategy is right up there with your Afghanistan strategy. Joe Biden and UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer will meet in Washington this weekend, Australian time. They will likely discuss whether to ease restrictions that currently prevent Ukraine using long-range weapons to attack inside Russian territory. The US is going to hit Iran with fresh sanctions now for selling those ballistic missiles to Putin, and it's urging allies to do the same. Blinken also announced that he'll join UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy on the first joint UK-US visit to Ukraine.
We are the closest of allies, so I'm delighted that we will travel together, demonstrating our commitment to Ukraine. And on the Middle East, we are completely aligned on the need to secure that ceasefire.
That's the UK's Foreign Secretary David Lammy. In a later interview with Sky News UK, Blinken addressed the Gaza conflict directly.
Just as I fully understand the hue and cry from so many parts of the world about Israel needing to do much better by Palestinians who are suffering, if maybe 10% of that time was actually spent demanding that Hamas get out of the way, that it put down its arms, that it stop hiding behind civilians, that it stop using civilian sites to do its operations and planning, that it get out of the schools, get out of the safe areas, that would be helpful too. I've heard virtual silence since October 7th on that. That is not to justify any actions that Israel may have taken, but it is to say there is silence.
US Secretary of State Antony Blinken speaking with UK Sky News' Yalda Hakim. Private internet access is terrific. With all the big government clampdown on online speech lately, you are taking a big risk if you don't have a VPN. That's a virtual private network. And it blocks spying eyes in big government or big corporate from seeing your IP address and hacking into your data. Now, it's super easy and cheap to set it up. It's not technical, even I could do it. And even if you already have a VPN, you should consider switching to these guys, because since I have had zero reduction in my internet speeds, which was a bit of a problem with the one I was using before. And I don't even have to think about this one. It's just on automatically whenever I turn on my computer. And even better news is that the other side has secured a special deal for you, which will get you set up for 83% off the usual price and with 4 months free. And get this, that brings the price down to less than $3 a month. It is absolutely amazing. So jump on it now, sign up to our special deal and help support us by supporting our sponsors. PIAVPN.com/otherside. PIAVPN.com/otherside. If you like that clip, there's more where that came from in our full show, The Other Side. You can watch it right here, the latest episode. And please subscribe to our channel by pressing the subscribe button right here or down here. And remember to click that notification bell too. It all helps. Join us and become part of The Other Side.